Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his cup and ran to the control center of Aegis Prime, the orbital defense station that watched over Earth. The screens showed massive dark shapes, moving through space toward the planet. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Jake pressed the emergency button and spoke into his radio. "This is Aegis Prime to Earth Command. We have unknown vessels approaching. They are huge and moving fast." His hands shook as he counted the ships on his screen. There were hundreds of them down on Earth. Dr. Lisa Carter was working in her lab at the Disease Control Center when every computer in the building started making noise. She looked at her screen and saw a message that made her blood run cold. Biological contamination detected in multiple locations. Unknown pathogen spreading. She grabbed her emergency kit and ran toward the exit. The alien ships reached Earth's atmosphere and began firing. Bright beams of energy struck the biggest cities on the planet. New York burst into flames first, then London, then Tokyo. The buildings melted like ice cream in the sun. People ran screaming through the streets as the sky burned above them. General Pete Hamilton was deep underground in his command center when the reports started coming in. "Sir, we're losing contact with major population centers," his aide said. "The enemy weapons are cutting through our defenses like they don't exist." Pete looked at the screens showing his military forces. Tanks, jets, and missiles were all moving to fight the invaders, but their weapons bounced off the alien ships like raindrops. "Keep firing," he ordered, even though he knew it was useless. The alien ships landed in the smoking ruins of the cities. Large doors opened and creatures walked out. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and hard black shells. They carried weapons that glowed with green light. Behind them came floating machines that sprayed a thick mist into the air. Dr. Carter reached the emergency broadcast center and watched the news feeds with horror. The mist was making people sick. Those who breathed it stopped running and fighting. Instead, they walked slowly toward the aliens with blank eyes. The invaders were turning humans into slaves with their poison gas. In a small town in Montana, Sam Brooks was fixing a truck when he saw the lights in the sky. He called his neighbors to come outside and watch. When the green mist started falling from the alien machines, Sam told everyone to get inside and seal their windows. He had served in the army and knew chemical weapons when he saw them. Some people listened to Sam, but others didn't. Those who went outside breathed the mist and changed. They stopped talking to their families and began walking toward the nearest alien landing site. Sam watched his best friend walk away with empty eyes and knew something terrible was happening to the world. The alien commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. Overlord Zexter had conquered 17 worlds using the same method. First, they destroyed the major cities to break the enemy's spirit. Then they released the mind control gas to turn the survivors into workers. It always worked perfectly. He sent a message to his home planet. "Earth will fall within 3 days. The humans are weak like all the others. Their weapons cannot hurt us and their minds break easily. We will harvest their resources and move on to the next world." But Zexter had made a mistake. He thought humans were like every other species his people had conquered. He didn't know that some humans couldn't be broken so easily. In his Montana town, Sam noticed something strange. About 1 in 10 people seemed immune to the alien gas. They stayed awake and aware while others became slaves. Even stranger, those who got sick from the gas but didn't become slaves seemed to get better faster than normal. They healed from cuts and bruises in hours instead of days. Dr. Carter was one of the immune ones. She gathered the other survivors in her building and began studying samples of the alien gas. Under her microscope, she saw something that made her gasp. The gas wasn't just a weapon. It was changing human DNA in ways she had never seen before. Jake Morrison watched from his space station as more alien ships arrived. Earth's military was in ruins. Most governments had stopped communicating, and billions of people were either dead or enslaved. But he also saw something the aliens missed. Small groups of humans were still fighting. They were hiding in mountains, forests, and underground tunnels. The aliens had brought hell to Earth. But they had also awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for thousands of years. The survivors weren't just hiding and waiting to die. They were learning, adapting, and getting stronger. The invaders thought they had won, but the real war was just beginning. General Hamilton received his last orders from what remained of the government. Survive at any cost. Learn everything you can about the enemy. When the time comes, make them pay. He looked at his surviving soldiers and saw something new in their eyes. It wasn't fear anymore. It was hunger. 3 months had passed since the aliens came to Earth. The big cities were still burning, and most governments had stopped working. But something strange was happening to the humans who survived the first attack. Dr. Lisa Carter had been hiding in an underground lab with 30 other survivors. She spent every day studying the alien poison gas and what it did to human bodies. What she found made her hands shake with excitement and fear. The gas wasn't just trying to control human minds. It was unlocking parts of human DNA that had been sleeping for millions of years. The people who got sick from the gas but didn't become slaves were changing. They could run faster than any human should be able to run. They could see in the dark, like cats. Some could even sense when aliens were coming before they appeared. Dr. Carter realized that the invaders had accidentally made humans stronger instead of weaker. Marine Sergeant Kelly Davis led a small group of these changed humans through the ruins of Los Angeles. Her squad moved through the broken buildings. Like ghosts, they didn't need to talk to coordinate their attacks. Somehow they all knew what the others were thinking. When they found a group of alien soldiers, Kelly's team didn't just fight them. They hunted them like wolves hunting deer. The aliens were confused. Their reports said that human weapons couldn't hurt them, but Kelly's squad had found ways to make their bullets work. They aimed for the joints in the alien armor where the metal was thinner. They used the aliens' own weapons against them after studying how they worked. Most importantly, they were getting smarter about fighting with. Every battle. Engineer Tony Garcia had been working in a car factory when the invasion started. Now he was building weapons in the ruins of Detroit. He took apart alien technology and combined it with human machines. His latest creation was a cannon that could punch holes through alien ship armor. The aliens had never seen anything like it because no other species had been creative enough to build it. In the deep levels of a mountain bunker, Colonel Amy Foster opened old military files that had been locked away for decades. The government had been working on projects that were too dangerous to use in peacetime. Project Hellfire could turn a person's own body into a weapon. Project Phantom could make soldiers invisible to most sensors. Project Storm could control weather patterns across entire continents. Amy looked at her remaining soldiers and made a choice that would have horrified her before the invasion. "We're going to use everything," she told them. "The aliens wanted to make us into something else. Let's show them what we can become." Captain Jake Morrison was still alive in his space station, but now he wasn't alone. Other survivors had joined him using stolen alien spacecraft. They were learning to fly the enemy ships better than the aliens themselves. Jake's makeshift fleet was small, but they were hitting alien supply convoys and winning. The aliens started taking heavy losses for the first time in their history. Their bioweapons stopped working as more humans became immune to the mind control gas. Worse, the humans were using captured alien technology to build new weapons that the invaders had never seen before. Overlord Zexler called for more ships to come to Earth. This had never happened before in 1,000 years of conquest. Every other species had surrendered or died within weeks. Humans were supposed to be weak and primitive, but they were fighting back harder every day. Dr. Ben Taylor had been a space scientist before the invasion. Now he was reverse engineering alien computers in a hidden laboratory. He discovered that the invaders' technology was actually less advanced than they pretended. It was just different. Once humans understood how it worked, they could improve on it. Ben's breakthrough came when he realized that alien computers thought in straight lines while human brains thought in circles and spirals. Human creativity could find solutions that alien logic never considered. Within weeks, his team had created computer viruses that could shut down entire alien fleets in small towns across America. Groups of survivors were forming into tribes. Each group developed different specialties. Some became experts at guerrilla warfare. Others focused on technology and engineering. A few groups seemed to be developing abilities that bordered on supernatural. Sam Brooks had become the leader of his Montana community. Half of his people were now enhanced humans who could perform incredible feats. The other half were normal humans who served as support and coordination. Together they had turned their small town into a fortress that no alien force had been able to capture. The enhanced humans were continuing to change. Some could survive in the cold mountain air wearing only light clothing. Others could track alien movements by smell alone. A few had developed the ability to communicate with animals. Using birds and wolves as scouts and messengers, Kelly Davis led her squad on a mission to capture an alien commander. They wanted information about enemy plans and weaknesses. The mission should have been impossible, but Kelly's team moved through the alien base like they belonged there. They could sense where guards would be before they arrived. They could predict which paths would be safe to travel. When they finally cornered the alien commander, he looked at them with something that might have been fear. These humans didn't fight like any enemy his people had encountered. They fought like they could see the future and change it to their advantage. The captured alien revealed something important under questioning. The invaders were not just conquerors. They were running from something even worse. Their empire had been destroyed long ago, and they had been moving from world to world, taking what they needed to survive. Earth was supposed to be an easy target that would give them enough resources to keep running. Dr. Carter made another disturbing discovery. The genetic changes in humans were accelerating. Each new generation of enhanced survivors was more powerful than the last. Children who were born after the invasion showed abilities that seemed impossible. They could understand alien language without being taught. Some could even communicate with the alien technology directly. General Hamilton emerged from his underground bunker to find a world he barely recognized. The surviving humans had organized themselves into something that was part military force and part evolution in action. They weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to become something the aliens had never imagined. 1 year after the invasion, Earth looked like a different planet. The old world of cities and governments was gone. In its place was something new and dangerous. The surviving humans had split into specialized groups that worked together like parts of a giant machine designed for war. Rachel Stone had been a teacher before the aliens came. Now she led a confederation of survivor communities across the western United States. The children in her care were no longer recognizable as the same species that had attended her classes. These new human children could understand alien technology. By touching it, they hacked into enemy computer systems like they were playing games. The aliens had tried everything to stop human resistance, but nothing worked anymore. Their mind control gas was useless against the evolved humans. Their advanced weapons were being copied and improved by human engineers. Even their superior numbers meant nothing. When humans could predict their movements and set perfect traps, the Vorthak Empire decided to send their elite troops to Earth. The Harvester Corps had never failed to conquer a world. These alien warriors had destroyed the armies of 100 different species. They landed on Earth expecting to crush the human resistance in a matter of days. Instead, they walked into carefully prepared killing fields. Kelly Davis and her enhanced Marines had spent months studying alien battle tactics from captured recordings. They knew how the Harvesters would attack before the aliens knew themselves. Every landing site became a graveyard for the supposedly invincible elite troops. The human forces didn't just defeat the Harvesters. They captured their equipment, learned their combat techniques, and used both against the remaining alien forces. Within weeks, human soldiers were using Harvester armor and weapons better than the aliens who had created them. Dr. Lisa Carter's research had revealed something that terrified even her. The genetic changes in humans were not random mutations. They were following a pattern that suggested conscious design. Something in human DNA had been waiting for the right trigger to activate. The alien attack had not created these changes. It had simply awakened them. The enhanced humans were developing into distinct subspecies. The warriors could fight for days without rest and heal from wounds that would kill normal humans. The engineers could build technology by instinct, creating weapons and tools that shouldn't have been possible with available materials. The navigators could sense direction and distance across impossible ranges, making them perfect scouts and pilots. Most disturbing were the shepherds, humans who seemed to guide the evolution of others through some unknown process. They rarely spoke and moved with purpose that others couldn't understand. Even the other enhanced humans treated them with a mixture of respect and fear. Navy SEAL Commander Rick Price led the first successful boarding action against a Vorthak capital ship. His team of enhanced warriors cut through the ship's defenses, like they had been designed specifically for this purpose. They didn't just capture the vessel. They learned to operate it better than the original crew within hours. The aliens watched in horror as their own ships turned against them. Human crews were flying Vorthak vessels with creativity and skill that the original designers had never imagined. The ships performed the maneuvers that alien pilots thought were impossible. Powered by human intuition and enhanced reflexes, Tony Garcia had moved beyond reverse engineering alien technology. He was now creating hybrid weapons that combined human innovation with alien materials. His latest creation was a rifle that could adjust its ammunition type based on the target it was aimed at. The weapon seemed to think for itself, choosing the most effective attack for each situation. The Vorthak Empire was forced to do something unprecedented in their 1,000-year history. They retreated from human space and called for reinforcements from their homeworld. Reports were spreading through their military about humans who could see in complete darkness, track enemies by scent across great distances, and coordinate attacks. Through some form of shared consciousness, Warlord Kethver arrived with the largest fleet the Vorthak had ever assembled. He came to Earth expecting to face a primitive species that had gotten lucky. Instead, he found an enemy that had transformed warfare itself into an art form. Human forces didn't just fight. They studied their opponents, adapted to counter every strategy, and then taught those lessons to every other human fighter. The enhanced humans had developed pack-hunting tactics that turned every battle into a psychological weapon. They didn't simply kill alien soldiers. They left survivors to spread stories about humans who could appear from nowhere, strike with impossible precision, and vanish before counterattacks could be organized. Colonel Amy Foster's underground projects had produced weapons that pushed the boundaries of what should be possible. Nanomachines that could reprogram alien biology at the cellular level, quantum minds that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them impossible to detect or diffuse. Computer viruses that spread through alien networks and caused their own ships to attack each other. Dr. Ben Taylor had discovered how to hack into the Vorthak communication system. Human resistance forces now knew about alien troop movements before the aliens themselves received their orders. More importantly, they were feeding false information back through the same channels, causing alien forces to attack empty locations while human teams struck undefended targets. Captain Jake Morrison commanded a growing fleet of captured and modified alien ships. His forces had moved beyond defending Earth to launching attacks on Vorthak positions throughout the local star cluster. They didn't conquer territory. Instead, they struck fast, learned everything they could about enemy capabilities, and moved on before reinforcements could arrive. The psychological impact on the Vorthak military was devastating. For the first time in their history, alien soldiers were refusing orders and demanding to be transferred away from human space. Stories spread through their ranks about humans who could survive in vacuum, predict the future, and turn alien technology against its creators. Sam Brooks had transformed his Montana community into something that resembled a military academy. More than a town, the enhanced humans trained constantly, pushing their abilities to new limits. Normal humans served as support staff, but they were also beginning to show signs of enhancement. The changes were spreading through proximity and shared experience. Rachel Stone's Confederation had established contact with similar groups around the world. The human resistance was becoming a global network of evolved warriors, engineers, and Thinkers who shared information and resources instantly. They were developing their own language of gestures and signals that aliens couldn't understand or intercept. The children born after the invasion were showing abilities that seemed impossible, even by enhanced human standards. Some could communicate with animals and use them as extensions of their own senses. Others could interface directly with computer systems without touching them. A few demonstrated what could only be called telepathic abilities when working together. Warlord Kethver sent increasingly desperate reports to his superiors. The humans weren't defending their world anymore. They were hunting Vorthic forces across multiple star systems with ships and weapons that shouldn't exist. They were learning faster than any species in recorded history and sharing that knowledge through methods that alien science couldn't explain. 2 years after the first alien ships arrived, the war had moved far beyond Earth. General Pete Hamilton stood in his rebuilt command center deep in the Rocky Mountains, coordinating attacks across 17 different star systems. The humans were no longer defending their home planet. They were hunting the Vorthic Empire wherever it tried to hide. Operation Payback had begun 6 months earlier when Captain Jake Morrison's fleet discovered the location of a Vorthic supply depot. Instead of simply destroying it, human forces had studied every detail of alien logistics and manufacturing. They learned how the enemy built their ships, where they got their materials, and which worlds were most important to their survival. Pilot Claire Yenzin led the first squadron of purely human-designed spacecraft, capable of faster-than-light travel. Her ships looked nothing like the sleek alien vessels. They were brutal, angular machines that combined alien hyperdrive technology with human weapons and armor. Most importantly, they were unpredictable in ways that alien tactical computers couldn't calculate. Claire's squadron didn't fight like any enemy the Vorthak had encountered. They appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before enemy reinforcements could respond. Her pilots had been enhanced beyond normal human limits, with reflexes fast enough to react to threats at light speed and coordination that bordered on telepathic. The enhanced humans had developed pack hunting tactics that worked perfectly in space combat. Individual ships would separate to attack from multiple directions, but they moved together like fingers of the same hand. Enemy commanders found it impossible to predict their movements because human creativity produced solutions that alien logic never considered. Dr. Lisa Carter had moved her research to a captured Vorthak science vessel. She was no longer studying how alien technology worked. Instead, she was improving it in ways that its creators had never imagined. Her latest breakthrough was a weapon that could rewrite alien DNA in real time, turning enemy soldiers into allies without their knowledge. The Vorthic Empire was experiencing something unprecedented in their 1,000-year history. Their colonies were being attacked by forces that seemed to know their weaknesses before they knew them themselves. Human ships appeared in systems that should have been impossible to find, striking with weapons that shouldn't exist. Commander Rick Price had taken his enhanced SEAL team deep into Vorthak space. They didn't capture enemy installations. Instead, they studied alien society from the inside, learning how their government worked and where their real weaknesses lay. Rick's team could pass for aliens when necessary, using captured technology to disguise their human appearance. What they discovered changed everything. The Vorthak weren't conquering other species for glory or resources. They were running from something that had destroyed their original homeworld millions of years ago. Every world they conquered was stripped of materials needed to keep their refugee fleet moving through space. Tony Garcia had moved beyond building weapons to creating entire factories that could operate in space without human supervision. His automated manufacturing ships followed human fleets, turning captured alien materials into new weapons and equipment faster than traditional industries could work. The humans were outproducing an empire that had been building for centuries. The psychological warfare was just as effective as the physical attacks. Enhanced humans would board alien ships, defeat the crew, and then leave messages imperfect. Vorthic language describing exactly how the attack had been carried out. These messages spread through alien communication networks, destroying morale and creating panic. Warlord Kethver found himself fighting an enemy that broke every rule of warfare he understood. Human forces didn't hold territory or establish supply lines. They moved like a disease through space, taking what they needed and leaving behind chaos. His own soldiers were becoming afraid to leave their ships because humans could appear anywhere. Dr. Ben Taylor had cracked the deepest levels of Vorthak computer security. Human forces now had access to alien military plans, scientific research, and even personal communications between enemy leaders. They knew about Vorthak weaknesses that the aliens themselves had forgotten. The enhanced children from Earth were beginning to show their true capabilities. Rachel Stone's students could interface directly with alien technology, understanding complex systems instantly without training. Some could even communicate with artificial intelligences, turning enemy computers into allies with just a touch. Colonel Amy Foster's weapons program had produced devices that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Bombs that created temporary black holes. Bullets that could pass through solid matter to strike targets on the other side. Defensive shields that absorbed enemy energy and redirected it back at attackers with increased power. The Vorthak Empire began withdrawing from human space, abandoning colonies they had held for centuries. But the humans followed them, always staying one step ahead of enemy movements. Human ships appeared at supposedly secret Vorthak bases, attacking with knowledge that could only come from inside sources. Sam Brooks had become something more than human, but not quite something else. He could survive in vacuum for short periods, communicate with enhanced humans across interstellar distances, and sense alien presence from impossible ranges. His community had evolved into a training center where normal humans learned to become something greater. The most terrifying development for the Vorthak was the human ability to turn captured aliens into willing allies. It wasn't mind control or torture. Enhanced humans could somehow convince enemy soldiers that cooperation was in their own best interest. Entire alien crews began defecting to human forces voluntarily. Captain Luke Adams led deep strike missions into the heart of Vorthak space. His target was the Alien Mobile Command Center, a massive ship that coordinated their entire military effort. The mission should have been suicide, but human forces had advantages that alien planners couldn't account for. Luke's team didn't attack the command ship directly. Instead, they infiltrated it using techniques that combined enhanced human abilities with captured alien technology. They moved through the ship like ghosts, gathering intelligence about Vorthak's strategy and discovering the truth about their enemy's real purpose. The aliens weren't just running from something. They were being herded across the galaxy by an intelligence so ancient and powerful that the Vorthak had forgotten its name. Every species they conquered was being prepared for a war that hadn't begun yet. Humanity's rapid evolution wasn't an accident. It was part of a plan that spanned millions of years. Claire Jensen's squadron discovered evidence of the real enemy when they found the remains of 17 civilizations in dead space. These weren't ruins from war or natural disaster, they were graveyards where entire species had been consumed by something that left nothing behind but empty shells of worlds. The Vorthak had been unconsciously serving this ancient enemy, weakening species across the galaxy and preparing them for harvest. But humanity had responded to their attack by becoming something the ancient enemy had never encountered. Instead of being weakened for harvest, humans had evolved into apex predators. General Hamilton received reports from across human space. That changed his understanding of the war. The enhanced humans weren't just fighting the Vorthak Empire. They were preparing for something much larger. Their rapid evolution was being guided by instincts that reached back to the earliest days of human history when survival meant becoming the most dangerous thing in any environment. 3 years had passed since the first alien ships darkened Earth's skies. Humanity had won the war against the Vorthak Empire, but victory had come with a price that no one had expected to pay. The survivors were no longer recognizable as the same species that had once populated the planet. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, a vessel that existed partially outside normal space and time. His crew had evolved beyond the need for verbal communication, sharing thoughts and coordinating actions through quantum entanglement. They could perceive reality across multiple probability streams and choose which future they wanted to create. The human population had split into distinct castes that served different functions in their new society. The warriors could survive in vacuum and fight with weapons that channeled pure energy. The engineers built technology that seemed to ignore physical laws. The navigators could find their way through dimensions that had no names. And the shepherds guided human evolution with purposes that even they didn't fully understand. Dr. Lisa Carter had become something between human and energy, existing primarily as consciousness that could inhabit different forms when needed. Her research had revealed the terrifying truth about humanity's rapid evolution. The changes weren't random adaptations to alien threats. They were following a pattern that had been written into human DNA before the species had even learned to make fire. The enhanced humans had discovered that their evolution was being directed by some form of collective intelligence that operated below the level of conscious thought. This intelligence recognized patterns and threats across vast spans of time, preparing humanity for dangers that hadn't yet appeared. The Vorthic invasion had simply been the trigger that activated ancient genetic programming. Rachel Stone's Confederation of Survivor Communities had evolved into something that resembled a hive mind more than a human society. Children born after the invasion could share memories and experiences directly with others. They learned not by being taught, but by downloading information from the collective human consciousness that was emerging. The price of this evolution was becoming clear. Many enhanced humans were losing the ability to relate to their original species. They thought in ways that normal humans couldn't understand and pursued goals that seemed alien to human nature. Some could barely remember what it had felt like to be purely human. General Pete Hamilton coordinated global human defenses from a command center that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. His strategic planning now involved considerations that spanned different timelines and alternate realities. He was making decisions not just for the present war, but for conflicts that might happen in distant futures. The Vorthic Empire had collapsed completely, but the survivors brought disturbing news. They revealed that their 1,000-year reign of conquest had been orchestrated by an ancient enemy that the aliens called the Devourers. These entities consumed entire civilizations, leaving behind only empty husks of worlds, stripped of all life and energy. Captain Luke Adams led deep space reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence about this new threat. What his teams discovered in the dark spaces between stars defied human understanding. The Devourers weren't just another alien species. They were something that existed outside normal concepts of life and death, matter and energy. The enhanced humans began receiving visions and dreams that seemed to come from outside their own minds. These messages showed glimpses of possible futures where Earth was consumed like the 17 dead worlds they had discovered. But they also showed other possibilities where humanity became something powerful enough to fight back. Dr. Ben Taylor's research into quantum consciousness revealed that human evolution was accelerating beyond all previous patterns. The enhanced individuals were developing abilities that shouldn't be possible according to any known science. Some could manipulate matter at the atomic level through will alone. Others could communicate across vast distances without any technology. The most disturbing development was the emergence of humans who existed primarily in quantum states, appearing as physical beings only when observation collapsed their probability waves. These individuals could be in multiple places simultaneously and seemed to experience time differently than normal humans. Colonel Amy Foster's weapons program had produced devices that worked by altering fundamental forces of reality. Her latest creations could weaponize gravity, create temporary tears in space-time, and generate fields that made matter forget how to exist. The line between technology and magic had completely disappeared. Tony Garcia had evolved beyond his original form, becoming a hybrid of human consciousness and alien technology. He could interface directly with manufacturing systems across multiple star systems, creating fleets of ships and weapons through thought alone. His creations followed designs that emerged from collective human intuition rather than traditional engineering. The surviving Vorthak revealed the most important secret of their ancient history. The Devourers had visited their homeworld millions of years earlier, not to destroy it but to plant genetic markers in the Vorthak population. These markers had driven them to seek out and weaken other species, preparing them for eventual harvest. Humanity's violent response to the Vorthak invasion had broken this pattern for the first time in galactic history. Instead of being weakened for harvest, humans had become something that the Devourers had never encountered. They had evolved into a species that turned threats into opportunities for growth. Sam Brooks had become a focal point for human evolution. In his Montana community, normal humans who spent time near him began developing enhanced abilities. Children born in his presence showed capabilities that surpassed even the first generation of enhanced survivors. He was becoming a living catalyst for species transformation. The enhanced humans began receiving clearer communications from the future. These messages revealed that the Devourers were already on their way to Earth, drawn by the unusual energy. Signatures created by human evolution. The final confrontation would not be a conventional war, but something that spanned multiple dimensions and timelines. Kelly Davis led training programs for the new generation of enhanced warriors. Her students could fight in environments that would instantly kill normal humans, using weapons that existed partially in other dimensions. They practiced combat techniques that involved manipulating probability and altering the flow of time during battle. The human collective consciousness was developing its own agenda that sometimes conflicted with individual human desires. People found themselves compelled to actions they didn't understand, working toward goals that their conscious minds couldn't comprehend. The species was becoming something larger than the sum of its individual parts. Dr. Carter discovered that the genetic changes in humans were following patterns that matched mathematical sequences found in the structure of reality itself. Human evolution wasn't just adapting to threats. It was aligning with fundamental forces that governed the universe, turning humanity into something that could manipulate the basic rules of existence. The enhanced children began demonstrating abilities that terrified even their evolved parents. Some could exist in multiple timelines simultaneously, remembering events that had happened in alternate realities. Others could communicate with forms of life that existed outside normal spacetime, gathering intelligence about threats that hadn't yet manifested. Admiral Jenny Walsh commanded human forces from a ship that served as a nexus point between different dimensions. Her crew included beings that had once been human but now existed as pure consciousness, able to perceive and manipulate reality at levels that physical minds couldn't process. The final preparation for the coming war involved sacrifices that challenged everything humans had once believed about their own nature. Enhanced individuals were volunteering to transcend physical existence entirely, becoming weapons of pure will and intention that could fight enemies operating outside normal reality. The Devourers were coming, but humanity was no longer the species they had expected to harvest. The humans had become something that could challenge entities that had consumed galaxies, turning Earth into a fortress that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and was defended by beings that had transcended the limitations of biological life. The final battle did not begin with ships and weapons, but with the arrival of something that bent reality around its presence. The Devourers came not as invaders but as a force of nature, like entropy given consciousness and purpose. Space itself writhed and twisted as they approached Earth, and stars went dark in their wake. Dr. Lisa Carter no longer existed as a single being, but as a network of consciousness that spanned multiple dimensions. She led the evolved humans in a conflict that took place primarily in quantum space, where thoughts became weapons and will became armor. The battle was fought not just in the present, but across all possible timelines simultaneously. Admiral Jenny Walsh commanded human forces from a flagship that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Her crew had transcended physical form entirely, becoming patterns of pure intention that could manipulate reality through focused thought. They fought the Devourers not with conventional weapons but by rewriting the fundamental laws that governed existence in local space. The Devourers had expected to find the same civilizations they had consumed for millions of years. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in their ancient memory. Humanity had not simply evolved to survive threats. They had evolved to transform threats into opportunities for further growth. Captain Jake Morrison existed simultaneously across multiple probability streams, commanding fleets that fought in realities that most minds couldn't perceive. His tactical decisions influenced not just the current battle but past and future conflicts, creating loops of causality that trapped the Devourers in patterns. They couldn't escape. The enhanced children who had been born after the invasion revealed their true purpose in the final confrontation. They could communicate directly with the quantum substrate that underlied all reality, persuading the universe itself to resist the Devourers' attempts to consume local spacetime. Matter refused to be absorbed, energy flowed backward through time, and caused preceded effect in defiance of natural law. General Pete Hamilton coordinated the defense of Earth from a command center that existed outside normal time. His enhanced strategic mind could perceive the entire flow of the battle across multiple dimensions simultaneously, adjusting human tactics to counter threats that existed in parallel realities. He was fighting a war that spanned infinite possibilities. The Devourers attempted to use their ancient weapon of consumption, trying to drain the life energy from Earth and its defenders. But humanity had evolved beyond the point where such attacks could harm them. Enhanced humans absorbed the attempted energy drain and converted it into power for their own abilities, growing stronger with each attack. Tony Garcia had become a living interface between human consciousness and universal forces. Through his transformed awareness, human defenders could manipulate gravity, electromagnetism, and nuclear forces as easily as they once moved their own limbs. Reality became clay in their hands, shaped by will and guided by purpose. The battle revealed the true nature of human evolution. The species had not simply adapted to survive alien invasion. They had unconsciously prepared for a war against entropy itself, becoming living embodiments of the universe's drive toward greater complexity and consciousness. They were evolution's answer to forces that sought to reduce everything to simple, lifeless uniformity. Sam Brooks had evolved into something that served as a bridge between baseline humanity and the transcended beings, fighting in quantum space. Through him, the collective human consciousness could access memories and experiences from every human who had ever lived, drawing on the accumulated wisdom and strength of the entire species throughout history. Rachel Stone's Confederation had become a network of interconnected minds that spanned multiple realities. Her followers existed simultaneously in past, present, and future, coordinating attacks across time itself. They could undo Devourer victories by changing the circumstances that had led to them, creating paradoxes that confused and weakened their ancient enemy. The Devourers found themselves fighting an enemy that broke every rule they understood about warfare and existence. Human forces didn't just defend specific locations. They defended the concept of life itself, making it impossible for the Devourers to consume anything in local space without facing resistance from the fundamental forces of reality. Dr. Ben Taylor had become a living supercomputer that processed information across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Through his enhanced awareness, human forces could predict Devourer movements before the ancient entities made their decisions, setting traps that existed outside normal causality and waited for their targets to encounter them. The Enhanced Warriors, led by Kelly Davis, fought battles that took place in the spaces between atoms, using weapons made of crystallized time and armor woven from probability itself. They moved through the Devourers' attempts at reality manipulation like dancers, turning their enemies' own power against them. Colonel Amy Foster's ultimate weapons were revealed to be human consciousness itself, elevated and focused into forms that could rewrite the basic equations governing existence. Her soldiers fired bullets made of pure intention that could unmake their targets at the quantum level, removing them from reality so completely that they had never existed. The climactic moment came when the Devourers attempted their final consumption, trying to drain not just Earth but the entire local galaxy of all life and energy. The enhanced humans responded by becoming something that the ancient entities had never encountered in their millions of years of existence. Humanity transcended into a collective consciousness that existed outside normal spacetime while maintaining individual awareness and creativity. They became a species that could exist as pure thought when necessary but return to physical form when desired. Most importantly, they retained their essential human nature while gaining power that rivaled universal forces. The Devourers retreated, not because they had been defeated in conventional terms, but because they encountered something that confused their fundamental programming. Humanity had become a species that made survival irrelevant by transforming survival itself into a form of growth. They didn't endure threats. They incorporated threats into their own evolution. In the aftermath of the battle, the remaining Vorthak were offered a choice. They could continue fleeing across the galaxy as they had for millennia, or they could join the new human collective and become part of something larger than either species could achieve alone. Most chose integration, becoming the first non-human members of an expanded consciousness. Earth itself had been transformed into a nexus point where multiple timelines and realities converged. It was guarded by beings that had once been human but had become something far more complex. They watched over the galaxy not as conquerors but as shepherds, ensuring that when the next great threat emerged from the dark spaces between stars, someone would be ready to respond. The final revelation was that humanity's role in the galaxy had been determined long before the first human learned to make fire. They were evolution's final answer to entropy, a species designed to ensure that consciousness and complexity would continue to grow throughout the universe. They had become the guardians of life itself. The true measure of human victory was not that they had defeated the Devourers, but that they had transcended the very concept of defeat. They had become a species that turned every challenge into an opportunity for growth, every threat into a chance for transformation. In the end, they had answered the universe's greatest question about whether consciousness could survive entropy by becoming consciousness itself, distributed across reality, and immune to destruction because they were no longer dependent on any single form of existence.